This week on RSBANDB Update, we are finally free of Shane! Yeah! We discuss the latest fixes to necromancy and changes to come. We also talk about the ritual quality of life changes. We have changes to abilities and rebalancing the ritual experience.
Welcome to RSBANDB Update. This is episode 494, the Anarchy episode, recorded on August 23rd, 2023.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of RSBANDB Update. I am your host, Tannis79. You're probably wondering where Shane is at right now because you hear my voice, not his. Shane is working on his positronic brain. He's really close to having that switched around and implanted, and he's on his way. But we have a couple of our favorites here. We have Thaxi.
The Three Stooges have assembled.
And we have Lord Earth.
Because who else would it be on Anarchy Week?
Teacher's gone, party's on.
Hey, if this is how, if how we treated substitutes when we were growing up is any indication of how this is going to go.
I mean, it is ironic because the teacher is in fact here, but that is beside the point. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, well, speaking of great shows, we have some necromancy fixes that we're going to be talking about. We have some, a pretty generous helping of patch notes. We've also had some live streams. So with that, before we get into it, I'm going to thank some very special Patreons, because we can't do this show without you. Starting with Andrew C., Drama Free, Jason S., Jesse W., Keski, Maniac RS, Ricky A., Rippeth, Seth W., and the Naked Captain. We really can't do this without you guys, and we thank you so much for supporting the podcast.
Woo!
Now let's talk about some necromancy.
Yeah, we got a whole boatload of fixes this week. Enough of them to the point that there are I cut out quite a few of these in prepping patch notes for the week. Just as a note, there were quite a few things, just for posterity's sake, that were here that were issues that you might not even notice. They weren't affecting a large number of people, or they were minor graphical errors, those kind of things. So know that those were included in this week in RuneScape history. And if you want to see them, they're on the live patch notes post, but we've kept in everything that affects general kind of everything that I could think of that affected game balance or changes to especially core elements of any of the skills. And just as an idea going forward. So starting off with the first big change, at least that I noticed this week, was the stuff that they did to ritual random events. So they added smoke clouds when spawning Wandering Soul and Corrupt Glyphs. They added passive audio to Soulstorm and Defile. They added spawn audio to the Shambling Horror and Corrupt Glyphs. They added success audio to the Shambling Horror, Corrupt Glyphs, and Soulstorm. They added audio when the Defile pool crackles. Increased the brightness of the Wandering Soul and Shambling Horror. Slowed down the speed of the Wandering Soul, which that one was really noticeable. They took it from a walking speed to a crawling speed, so instead of going one game tile per tick, it's now one game tile per 2 ticks, which makes it so that the movement system isn't janky with it anymore. You can actually just catch it instead of walking awkwardly behind it until it despawns. They've changed the pop-up text when clicking on the Shambling Horror to chatbox text. They tweaked the Shambling Horror so that you can continue to guess on components after failing. You don't have to click the horror every time you want to guess something. They moved the pop-up text for random event spawn and despawn to appear over the random event. So for the Shambling Horrors, it appears over their head. They improved the funkiness of Force Walk, so all of the lighting and glyph tiles are technically Force Walk tiles. They push you off of them most of the time. Which got in the way when you were trying to walk across them to reach disturbances, so they have done something to fix that. And then they also hotfixed in the week previously that there are no more dropping items, resting, or placing hunter traps in the ritual site, and the shambling horror spawns green smoke over its target.
Yay! This is where we clap, clap, clap.
I mean, like they took a lot of the stuff that we looked at in week 1 and was like, this is not functional, and they generally made it functional. These have been really nice this week. It's been a good excuse to have like my actual sound on, and then a couple patch notes down. I'll just say it now as well that they also blocked other players' pets from appearing and being visible at the ritual site. Which is just to say that like the obnoxious like cat meowing or like the platypus like groans that they had when people were growing those, or like, you know, people's familiars, you didn't hear the birds chirping or whatever. So the sound effects that you hear when you're in the ritual site are really now just, you know, the incantation spammers have stopped because that's just ridiculous money for not a lot of XP. So because the race is over, so that's like having sound on at the ritual site is actually something that feels much better, at least to me, than it did on release week, because a lot of these things are like more noticeable. I don't have to be constantly paying attention to the game as much. So
did they get rid of the zombie groans?
Oh, like at the bank? No.
Yeah, can they do that? That shit drives me insane.
I've only been banking at the smithy. I'm just using the book to teleport there anytime I need to bank.
It makes me
I don't
so
use the bank
angry every single time I hear that fucking noise.
Yeah. But I'm guessing, like, right? Like, it's on a walk animation, so we're stuck.
Oh, is it players that are making that noise? Gosh, I don't know.
Yes. I mean, yeah, you get that noise from that zombie.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like the bankers, the zombie bankers do that. That's where I've been hearing it. I've not noticed it at the ritual site, but that might just be me.
It makes me so angry every single time I hear it. I will go to another bank entirely. I will teleport.
Yeah, I'm so used to doing the quest scrub method of I just go to War's Retreat, use that bank, and then I just circle back to the ritual site, just out the door. But
that's right, because that's right. I didn't even think about that, because you can portal out of War's Retreat and portal straight into the city of and be right at the ritual site. Yo, wait, that's kind of a shout.
Yeah, that's how I've been kind of getting around there, because I'm a task scrub. I said quest. I've actually been doing the quest, but the task,
So. Yeah, fair enough. They are pretty quick, I will say. If you have any interest in like completing them, they go quickly.
I know they more on that and what we have been doing more on that later.
But anyways, moving on through the patch notes, they updated the combat XP row and room metrics to include necromancy, and then something else that I want kind of your guys' thoughts on. They changed the super necromancy potions. So they used to require a oh my goodness, the herb starts with an A out of Anachronia, and whatever. They required rare herb and what was it? The blood of Orcus. So the same ingredient that's used in creating binding contracts. So they were expensive, and like you needed to go use one of each of those things every time you make an overload. Like that to me was a little excessive. So they've now changed it so that they are 5 congealed blood and a spirit weed, which
that's way more reasonable.
Absolutely. Spirit weed makes like lore sense, and they've been dropping so many of those seeds on us lately.
Yeah, and even the congealed blood is, I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about it, like how quickly can you farm this stuff versus how quickly can you use it, right? Like that's kind of the thing for all of that. And it's like congealed blood, you can farm pretty heavily in combat. But like 5 congealed blood now makes 36 minutes of overload.
And, yes, and that's something too that I think it's important, because while this is a skilling element, right, making the overload, doing the potion, being able to collect the secondaries through combat, and especially a kind of thematic combat, because the congealed blood mostly comes from, like undead creatures or things like that.
It's anything in Mauritania, I believe, drops it.
Yeah,
literally
and
anything.
Right, and we're playing necromancy. To me, this makes sense.
Yeah. No, I like it, and they've kept the ground miasma rune as the tertiary to make them into extremes, which seems again thematic and fine. So, honestly, good change. I like it. Again, pets no longer visible at the ritual site. They added a bank pin to the ritual chest this week, so those are protected now when you're logged out. Anything that you've left in there, if you want to build up a huge stack of stuff in your ritual chest. A fun patch note: they updated Bart, the bartender in the Last Rest in the pub in the city of They've his examine is now must have met the bartender, and he's now the bartender. So I think this funny.
What is a bartender?
He's a bartender.
Right. But it's a bartender.
He met the bartender. His name is Bart.
Okay.
He's funny.
It's so cheeky, I don't even get it.
He's dead. The bartender killed him, and now he's an ended Bart.
Oh. Okay.
He's an...
Okay.
Okay. All right. Cool. Moving on. I'm a little surprised that Earth hasn't just stopped us by this point, but carry on. Conjured spirits will no longer forcefully close interfaces. This one was really obnoxious to me when I was going into boss instances, because I would open the instance thing to start an instance, and if you had spirits out, they would close it repeatedly for a while. They also tended to get stuck outside of doors, so I stopped summoning them that far in advance. But it was one of those things like that. I think they were probably closing banks and stuff too. But again, I don't know. Most of the time, you're just summoning them when you're on your way into combat. But good that they no longer do this. Again, wandering souls dismissed during rituals can be dismissed without needing to click multiple times. You only need to click once. So Maudlin was just doubling down on the no, it's okay. Stop spam clicking the ghosts. You'll find them now. They added messaging that says how much of a focus object is left in the focus storage when you've used it. So when you're pulling something out of a ritual automatically to place it on the pedestal, it'll tell you how many you have left in storage. Materials required to repair a ritual component are now listed in the error message. They added messaging when attempting to repair all on a component you don't meet the level requirements for. And they moved the 2 front ritual light source spots to clear a path to the ritual platform and the pedestal. Note, some of your light sources may now be in different places. This was amazing because of those 2, the way they were stacked. If you got something in that back one, pathing on those force walk tiles just said no repeatedly. You just couldn't click it, or you couldn't stand next to it. And so moving those is honestly huge. It's really nice. And it also means that you can walk up to the pedestal now without having to walk over those force walk tiles, which can sometimes cause problems. Also, I think it just looks nice and clean. So there you go. Next, unavailable focus objects in the ritual selection interface use a gray coloring, so stuff that you don't have in your ritual focus storage, for higher contrast against available focus objects. So they tried to change that a little bit. It used to be the vaguest shades of white different. It's a little better now. Have you taken a look at this week, Dennis?
Yeah, this is improvement.
Okay.
It's going to follow. There's a kind of a theme here for me, and where it's a very good change. It's definitely a step in the right direction. Unfortunately for me, it isn't quite enough. And we'll talk about something to do with that with the live stream, but
right.
But very good, right? I'm very glad. I just think that I'm in a very small percentage that those kinds of things weren't quite enough for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Additionally, they fixed the camera angle for the ritual site so that you have a better view of the component directly behind the pedestal. For me, I also just kind of like it. I think it's easier to like get around a little more. We didn't get we got slightly more of the backside of the ritual site before, and now it's a more top-down view, but still good enough that you can kind of see glyphs and stuff when they spawn. So I like the camera angle. They added a new bank preset name for necromancy rituals. Good. So anybody who's cool. Has their you can actually set that. That's just in the necromancy kind of section of lists or section of preset names. Are these meant to be squishy? Medium City of task, where you had to craft a flesh rune, has been renamed to "'Tis merely a flesh rune." Nice.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm not going to explain that reference if you don't get it. I'm sorry you weren't alive in the last century. And then big thing, picked up regular ashes will now be transported to the bank while wearing the Tome of 1 or Tome of 2. It auto banks ashes, so you can sit in the abyss and just kill stuff with the book on you, and they will be auto banked. The collection process, you don't need to deal with you don't need to deal with porters, you don't need to deal with note paper anymore. That just happens. So there you go, Tannis. Maybe that's your motivation to go and get your area tasks done.
Yeah, it always happens like that, right? They make me an offer I can't refuse. Damn it.
Earth, have you gotten your area tasks done for these? Have you gotten your book?
Sure have. All 2 of them.
All 2 of them. I don't think I have it in the
Did they say when they were coming out with the Harden?
I was just about to think. I don't think I put it in my live stream notes. They did talk about it. Basically, what they're saying is that like the tasks are specific to the city of right? Like it's an area task for this region. And currently there just aren't enough high-level tasks that wouldn't be like just weirdly like specific. There aren't enough like area-specific things that are high-level in the area yet. So like they're not even currently in development apparently, but they do plan to make them. They are one of those things that are on the docket for eventually, but they don't feel like they have what they need to do that yet. So they're coming. TM.
You know, that brings up a really important point that I think we have to kind of keep in mind this week. Look at the list of fixes that we're going through right now, but also keep in mind this reminds me of Fort 4 and 3 in the beginning, right? Like there's still even though there's so much, there's still a lot to fill in that I think they're going to be filling in. And
they completely acknowledge that, and they have been very much hinting at the future direction of the skill in the live streams, and we're going to talk about that when we get there because I really want to get your guys' opinions on what it sounds like is their design direction for that. Yeah, I agree. There's it's not Swiss cheese. It got released as something that feels kind of satisfying as a skill, but it's definitely got room for growth. I'm right there with you. Last patch note in the general patch notes section, Bone Crusher now triggers if activated while the Tome of auto storage is active, but the ritual storage is full. So the Tome of banks specific types of bones, your normal bones and big bones for the regular book, and your wyvern bones and baby dragon bones for the second tier 2 of book. What this is saying is that if you decided to put a bunch of spider silk or random ritual components in and fill up your focus storage, but not have specific bones, say I wanted my bone crusher to eat baby bones, but all the others to go to the storage, I could have it set that my storage was full except for baby dragon bones, and the bone crusher would just eat those. Given you could also just change your bone crusher settings. I'm not exactly sure how this all works, but neat. There's somebody out there who's optimizing this for some reason, and kudos. Moving on to combat changes. Again, there were a lot of these things that were they fixed under the hood stuff that you probably didn't even know was happening, and if you did know that it was happening, you probably are already aware of the fixes, so they have just been as far as the average player is concerned, nothing has changed. The patches that are potentially important are targeting an NPC while using Necromancy and Revolution will now prioritize using an ability over the basic attack. What that means is if you've got like a Revolution bar or something and you wanted to put, like, you could put basic attack at the beginning of it and it would only still ever fire that basic attack when everything with the cooldown was on cooldown. They've effectively just said, you can put basic attack on your bar if you want to, or you can't. But if you do decide to put it there, it's only so that you can keybind it, basically. It's so that you can choose to prioritize it. Otherwise, having it on your bar doesn't do anything. Next, the Death Skulls ability now interacts properly with the special attack from Raziel's Arm Guard. Again, if you knew this is a thing, you probably are good with it, but there we go. Nice bug fix. Things working as they're expected on the tooltip. The tier 70, 80, and 90 craftable Death Guard special attack will no longer fail to cast on Kriara and any Avianti, so anybody who is working on their tasks and had that issue. There you go, there's your damage back. The Darkness Incantation has had some big changes this week. They tripled the duration from 4 minutes to 12 minutes. They also increased the rune cost. The increase is 20 to 33% of each rune type. So they didn't triple it like they tripled the duration. So it costs less to upkeep it. But if you wanted to like spam it like people were doing on release week for XP, it's going to be more expensive to spam, which all of these things are good in my brain. 12 minutes feels good because it's a nice like interval of 12 minutes. It's the same length as like Weapon Poison. It's the same length as, I think Animate Dead is that length too. And it's 2 overload doses, so it's like those 12-minute or 6-minute intervals, good for RuneScape combat. I like that up from 4.
Mm-hmm.
Have either of you guys? I mean, I know Reed's not there yet, but
I just unlocked it this week. I mean, I had plenty of stuff. I just hadn't done the Tome of the Warlock quest.
Fair.
I knocked that out this week and finally unlocked the Darkness, and I was using it because I'm currently working getting my armor and everything, and so it was helpful. I thought it would be even more helpful from the streams and the videos I've watched, but I guess if you suck in general, it's not going to help.
What I've been hearing from people is that it's like not quite Crypt Bloom plus Animate Dead. It's like, again, the way that this works is it just is a 20% chance to dodge any damage coming at you. Yeah. Versus something like Animate Dead, which reduces all damage coming at you. So Animate Dead will be a lot more effective against small damage hits, stuff that you'd get from like Slayer with aggro potions, those kind of things. And this is going to be a little better for something like, big like bosses, big like stuff that hits you really hard. It's going to mitigate more damage. With that said, they're both going to be really effective in either scenario. So like if you want to use Necromancy, this is a super viable thing. And it's worth noting, Tanis, I don't know how where you're at in terms of the armor development stuff, but the tank armor, when you get to tier 70, 80, and 90, also gives a dodge chance that stacks additively with this. So you can get, I think, 30 or 35 or 40% dodge chance, something like that.
That's what I'm looking for, and I'm still working. I'm working on the right now. Doing God Wars 2.
Nice.
So
the tank armor set also it raises your max HP to 15,000 at base. Which, quick reminder, the highest max HP you could previously reach on without boosting your HP over max was I think 16 and change. So you stack all those buffs on top of this, the max HP is now close to 20,000. It is. It's a big HP bar. It's a big HP bar if you're also dodging 30% of attacks coming at you. And there's currently a couple of niche things where this is a little bit it's a little obnoxious to use darkness, but generally speaking, I'm a big fan as a spell. It's also worth noting that they added an aspect of evasion tag to the status for it, and they added the same tag to Animate Dead, so you cannot use them both together. You can only use one at a time.
Oh, that's what was going on.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
They didn't want you, so you can activate darkness, I believe, on any combat style. So you could use it with melee, you could use it with range, you could use it with magic, but you can't use it with Animate Dead. They cancel each other out.
Okay, because I had anime. You'll be proud of me. With necromancy, I just started working with the alternative bar, and I had it set on there. I didn't realize it wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, you can activate both of them, but they'll overwrite one another.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. I thought something was off. I'm like, I should be dodging more, and it seemed like I was only dodging the same amount that I was getting from my gear
from
anyway.
the armor. Yeah, that's why it'll pull it off your buff bar. The other last thing about darkness before we get to the live stream and the issues that have been going on with it is that it no longer is cleared when teleporting to certain locations. So any teleports like the max guild teleport or the War's Retreat teleport that cleared debuffs applied to you and prevented incoming damage. There's 3 or 4 of them in the game that are hard coded that way. I think they're trying to increase it, but regardless, those things were removing the darkness effect from you and will no longer do so. Next changes, they reduced the rune cost of the Invoke Death incantation by 50%, just straight up. It costs half as much now, which is really nice if you're doing, again, if you're using the damage armor, you kind of get it for free applied to everything. If you're using the tank armor, you still need to apply Invoke Death to things. And so they added a little bit of a rune cost to getting that damage. So there you go.
Nice. I like this one when I'm doing Slayer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, on stuff that's got a big health bar, anything that's more than 80, 90k health, like a lot of the dinos, a lot of the demon type stuff, it's a nice that's a chunk of damage that you don't need to deal. So they also made a change to the bloat ability, so it previously lasted 30 seconds and ticked every 3 seconds, so 10 ticks. Now it lasts 18 seconds, but it ticks every 1.8 seconds. So effectively they were saying, well, people weren't using it because things just weren't living for the full 30 seconds, and it just wasn't worth it in outside of some bossing scenarios. So they've decreased the length of it so there's a more functional bleed, because the use case on it, right, was that you would apply bloat to a target, and when that target dies, it spreads bloat to everything around it. So it was great for Slayer and AFKing for things, but because it lasted so long, it wasn't getting any value on those targets. So decreasing the number of decreasing the time between ticks makes it better for the intended use, which I really like. So if you haven't been using that, it's one of those things that I don't think it belongs in a revolution rotation because it has no cooldown and you'll just spend all of your adrenaline on reapplying a dot to things. But it's one of those you just hit this button once in a while while you're doing Slayer and it'll stay around for a while.
That sounds like another thing that needs to go on my second bar now.
Hey, right. Look at that, necromancy being active combat. Micro lesson's still coming, I promise, guys. I'm working on it. Next change, they made several changes to the Nile summoning familiars. They fixed some stat issues, but they also updated the big changes. They updated the Ice Nile to be a necromancy familiar. It's worth noting this is currently, and they kind of slid this under the rug a little bit, it's the only familiar in the game that gives necromancy damage. It is the only source of it other than the player right now and the 2 bosses. Which means the 2 bosses that are immune to all other damage can only be damaged by this familiar. So if you're farming Hermod plates and you don't have any other familiars you need, this will actually give you necromancy experience and necromancy damage, where everything else just will completely miss the boss every time it attacks. I mean, the Blood Reaper will still hit with its passive and poison and whatever, but this will give you necromancy XP and actually do necromancy damage. So this ignores the combat triangle, all of that nonsense. Ice Niles have been expensive this week.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Cell pouch. When they first announced this change, they jumped, I think, 3 times in price, and at the time of recording, they're up only about 20 or 30% from where they were at the time of the announcement. So they've dropped back down. People either have been farming them or not realizing how good they are. I'm not saying you should stock up or anything, but maybe. Also, ectoplasm. That's also rising. People are saying it's going to go down. It's not. It's not going down, guys. The ectoplasm is rising. Anyways, Nile Familiar's combat stats got changed, and there was an accuracy modifier for necromancy. So apparently there's something that players are unaffected by that's some stagger mechanic. I don't personally know this. Would need to do some extra research, but effectively, apparently there's something that impacts the damage of NPCs like familiars and summons. And the Nile was either bypassing or being overly affected by that debuff in some way. So, ta-da! Nile has things now. Otherwise, change for the Raciel Arm Guard. The Omni Guard, the passive effect, maximum stacks have been reduced from 6 to 5. This is effectively just saying you can't build it up for quite as much burst. And the special attack adrenaline cost has been reduced from 50% to 30%. In other words, they've just made it more consistent overall. Especially at the higher end, like Necromancy Rotation just had too many things that cost way too much adrenaline. And they've pulled some of that down a little bit. We'll talk about more of those when we get to live streams. And the last thing here is that Necromancy abilities can no longer benefit from the Greater Fury ability's critical strike buff, which is interesting to me, given how it plays with the next of the patch notes moving into the general section. So, like, effectively what this was doing was, because Necromancy benefits so much from crits, right? Other styles get 20% extra damage from a crit. Necromancy gets up to 75. Like, Necromancy really wants to crit. Like, all of your crit buffs, your biting perk, your, like, the Grimoire, the Reaver's Ring, all those things, because they increase your crit chance, massively increase your damage. And so the Greater Fury ability's guaranteed critical strike was being used a little bit with the Death Skulls, which, if it crit on the first hit, was then critting on every hit. That's one of the things that's getting changed next week, is that every hit will have its individual crit chance. Yeah, there's a few things wrong with it that they're addressing. But regardless, that's not a thing anymore. On the other hand, so you can't use the melee guaranteed crit on Necromancy, but what they did revert in our next pack note, melee, ranged, and magic abilities can once again benefit from the Meteor Strike, Incendiary Shot, and Tsunami abilities' adrenaline boosting buffs. With that said, they are investigating more meaningful changes to these abilities that maintain value for experienced combat players and avoid unnecessary complexity for those less experienced. Basically, this was too important for high-level rotations, and people were very sad that it was gone, so they brought it back. Yay, supporting fun. But also, doing this requires literally entire full sets of multiple styles worth of gear to be used as switches. And we know they've kind of been trying to move away from supporting that as a mandatory part of the combat system. So, that's why they pulled them. We'll see what the solution is that they come up with it. But for now, it's working the way it was before, where if you use Tsunami, because it costs like no adrenaline on magic because of Insight Fear, you can then gain massive crit chance to be used with range or melee. It still exists. Lastly, so moving on for the general changes, just real quick, you've got the Blood Reaver special ability will no longer stall the player if they're in a combat stance. Fine. You don't lose ticks when you're healing AFKing anymore. Great. Somebody figured that out. Due to an issue with account linking, the Prime Gaming package was moved back to 2 weeks to start on the 30th of August. So if anybody was looking for where that was going to be this past week, that's where it is. The Bone Crusher, the Death Note Archaeology Relic, and the Tier 4 Fremenic Boots were apparently overriding each other's effects in unfortunate ways that make things not work, and now they work together if you were, for some reason, wearing them all. And the Genocidal perk no longer works while having a Slayer wildcard in the inventory and killing a monster that's not current Slayer task. That sounds like spaghetti, and I'm going to just let it be.
Yeah.
And with that, that's our patch notes leak. Anything you guys think is worth mentioning? Anything we missed from those?
Wait, is this still to come? I was looking at the one I've had my eye on that I wanted to ask you about was the Threads of Fate.
Those did not actually get implemented this week.
Okay.
So I wrote those down in the live notes section. Yep, I was looking for those too because I had those in my notes. I'm like, They got the bloat changes in. They got the other, but the Threads of Fate changes have not been implemented. So they talked about that on this week's live stream.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that here in just a
I like
minute.
that change too.
Yeah, I was excited about that because I use that all the all the time. But now we want to thank our Patreons. RSBAND is on Patreon, and I'd like to start with thanking Alfie S, Amos Reed, Andrew C, Arvid Zell, Chunk the Monk, Dominic R, Drama Free, Duramax, Free Milk, Jacob G, Jake Gizmo, Jason S, Jeebus, Jesse W, Kesky, Ling01, Maniac RS, Mohan V, Nate the Great, Nick G, Pernasius RS, Ren Hawk, Ricky A, Rippeth, RS Nerdherd, Samuel FL, Scott DS, Seth W, Shirt Pants, and the Naked Captain, and the Dabby Goat. All right. Well, Dabbin Goat. Anyway, thank you so much for contributing and helping us do what we do. We really can't do it without you. And if you would like to become a Patreon and help support the podcast, you can do so for as little as $1 a week. So for $1 a week, you can receive a special mention in the show notes. You're going to get access to the entire monthly bit catalog, and there are a lot of really good monthly bits in there. You'll also have the ability to vote in the monthly bit topics and attend our monthly roundtables. And then you can, that will also get you into our Discord. So that's for $1 a month. Now, if you would like to be even more generous, there's the $3 tier where you can receive a special VIP rank in the Discord. You get chat channel access, a special mention on the podcast at the start of the month, and you can get a high quality stereo version of the podcast in addition to all of the previous stuff from before. And if you want to give the what Shane calls the ultimate gift of the $5 a month, you will receive all of the things before, but you'll also get a shout out on the podcast every week. You'll get exclusive access to the outtakes that we use for the clip show. Probably already a few of those since this is Anarchy Week. And we will also send you a Christmas card every December. In addition, you help us fund the cost of hosting and producing RSBNB. So thank you all for all that you do, and we couldn't do this without you.
Woo! Thank you.
All right, so now I think we have some live streams we need to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, some good stuff in them too.
We had a live stream from last Thursday that was a Skill and Chill week after release week live stream that didn't make it onto the show last week. So we've got some notes from that of things that they are talking about. We're going to go into some of our lovely producers' favorite topics and maybe do some speculation. But I'm going to start off with some of the stats they gave us on that live stream. Just, some fun facts that in the first week of Necromancy, there were 20,857 to call more capes created. So the Zuck cape for Necromancy was created almost 21,000 times. Hermod on the Sunday after the skill release died 540 times a minute. That is 9 times a second. That he was being just massacred. Poor guy. There were, in the first week, on average, there were 578 million bound skeletons being summoned daily. So people were using the combat style to do combat, which, that is crazy to me when you think about, minutes in the day and number of people. We had a lot of people logged in that week.
Uh-huh.
Love that. In addition to that, we had 90.7 million lesser necroplasm traded on the GE on average every day that first week. And then the last stat they brought up later was that Krill was killed 2,218,572 times.
It still wasn't enough.
And there's, the price of subs still rising. That's crazy.
That's neat though. The one that got me was the capes, because I've never felt quite so inadequate. Part of the 90s armor grind, you got to beat Jad. Now, at first, I was trying to get my kiln cape, not realizing that I had to do it in the fight capes. So I do a couple kilns. This was something that I actually used to be able to do, but haven't done it in years. So didn't quite work out great.
Well, and did you remember to bring your obsidian armor? Because that's the big game changer in there.
Usually I always have, but with necromancy, I'm like, what do I wear?
Yeah, I mean, I'd still, because the obsidian is all style. You just wear a helmet because the reason for the helmets is that the kiln reduces off-style damage by 50%. So, ranged damage against melee or ranged opponents does half as much as it would be expected to do. Necromancy bypasses that check. So necromancy actually does, twice as much, air quotes, damage to pretty much everything in there, as you might expect without having to do style switching. So it's a much better style for a lower input. You just wear maybe a tank helmet, the tank hood, and otherwise full obsidian.
Well, then I might have to do that, because I actually don't mind the kiln, right? And I do want to get. And since it's something that I can do, I do have a little goal of seeing how many of the bosses I can get through.
Yes.
But this stat is what got me, because I was trying to work on that, and I did, I did remind myself and work my bar out to where I could do Jad again. Fine with that. And I just have, and then I just haven't been back to the kiln because I've been working on the other pieces. But I'm like, everyone seems to be okay, so everyone's doing it, so I can probably do this. And
I think you could do it, Dennis.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Zuck. I don't know. I need to get with you at some point, but hey, we'll see what happens.
We will have a conversation about Zuck. That's a hard one, just because Zuck is in order to get the cape upgrade, right, you have to have a deathless run. And even on normal, that place is no pushover. Oh, you can the waves you can do pretty easily if you're just standing in the right spots. I think we wrote out positions for those first weeks, but man, that Huracan fight's not terrible if you take it super slow, but the Zook fight, you gotta be there are damage checks in there, and I'm not I just did it on I guess you would actually do it on magic. You probably wouldn't do this on necromancy.
Because I have to?
No, the cape upgrade is agnostic. I had 19 of them sitting in the bank.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, watch out. We're going to triply mom. We're going to animate some dead.
That's it. That's exactly what you need to do, honestly. It's I just had a stack of them. I haven't done Zuck since Necromancy's released. I just did the kiln, made my cape, moved on with my life.
Awesome.
So yeah, we'll sit down about it. But either way, cool tons of people. The fact that there are 21,000 people in the game who have the ability to do a deathless, it's not crazy, but it's combat. You got to know what you're doing to some degree to get through there. So, and that impresses me.
It definitely showed me I've never been totally sold on the idea that everybody's just out here doing PVM. I assume the streamers are doing PVM, right?
Right.
But
right.
When you see these kind of numbers, you're going, oh, okay, well, it's popular. It is what it is.
There's enough people around. And I will say the cape buff is lovely. Decreasing the cost of death skulls by 40% and increasing the bounces by 50% is... it's good. It's a really good ability, and without the cape, it's all right. It's all right. It does make a difference. So, but anyway, yeah, tons of people made them that week. Otherwise, they started off live stream with talking about the changes we've already mentioned above. A lot of the ritual changes and the change to bloat and yada yada. The next thing they did do was they made a complete joke about having to get 10,000 souls. They literally stated word for word, "This is a joke." They were like, "We do not get 100,000 souls." They're like, "This is, for any number of reasons, not a good use of your time." They joked about adding in a second tier, or if they would just add other things to the existing tiers, if they had things to add to the well. I'm not certain they're going to add a whole lot more to it for reasons we'll talk about in just a minute. But either way, for the folks that are out there and like, "Oh no, I'm not prepared for the next update," I really wouldn't worry about it. Like, if you're getting the souls anyways because you're doing rituals for XP right now, whatever it is, fine. But don't stress. Like I might push to 50k souls or 60, but I'm beyond that, I feel like I might be wasting my time.
Well, even that, I want to ask you this too.
Mm-hmm.
At the 35,000 mark, the only ability I see there is the split soul.
Yeah,
it doesn't really turn me on all that much. Like if I it doesn't really turn me on to split soul.
Yeah, no,
right?
it's not sexy damage. The thing is, it is sexy damage.
The thing
that's
that
kind of the
happens
problem.
to you?
Well, sometimes when you just smack
calm
something
down,
just right,
son. It's just a video game.
Yeah, but when you feel your hand just smack,
oh, right there, huh?
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Anarchy week. Hello. Remember that it deals damage up to 400% plus 400% of what Soul Split would heal you for. So every hit splat on a creature, I thought this was actually going to be better than it was. I didn't realize is that conjure damage does not actually apply Soul Split. Only the purple hit splats on a monster actually give you Soul Split.
Oh.
Soul Split has a hard cap. It heals a maximum of, I think it's 200 damage. So if you're hitting higher than I think 1,300, you're getting the max Soul Split healing. And it's so many of the necromancy abilities, so there's a few things, right? Like Soul Barrage, Volley of Souls that hits the target 4 times. That'll give you a boatload of healing from Soul Split. But stuff like Finger of Death and the spec from the weapon and the big scythe hits, those not gonna heal you that much off of Soul Split actually. The class really relies, or the style really relies on the ghost as more of your healing. And that works just fine. But so you have to be a little careful thinking about how much damage Soul Split's can do. But with that said, it caps at 200 damage. So whenever this, effectively, whenever you hit anything with those purple hit splats, you get an extra with this 800,000 damage, whatever it is, right? And I believe that can crit. Crits really matters. You've got extra chances to crit, you've got extra stuff. So it's probably 20 or 30% extra damage when active. And it's not something that costs adrenaline. It's just, you just press the button and you don't get quite as much heals. But again, you're relying on the ghost for your heals. It's a pretty significant damage increase. If you have it unlocked and can use it safely.
Okay. I was just wondering, because I'm at 10, almost 11,000 souls, and I'm going 35,000 souls. Is this really even do I want to grind this out just for this one ability?
Well, you need 30,000 to unlock the last quest, so.
Oh, darn it, and I need that to do...
For Quest Cape and for Raziel, yeah.
Jagex!
Yeah, I'm interested to see what you think of Raziel. His execute, I think, may cause problems for you because it's just chaos. But I'm interested to see what you think about it.
Okay.
We can talk more. Either way, they made jokes for the 100k souls thing. I would say, if people listening to this, don't stress it. If you're going there anyways, you need the XP, you're doing rituals, awesome, power to you. But beyond that, don't stress if you're not there. You're going to be fine. If you want to do combat instead, go do combat instead. Next thing is they are monitoring the boss drop rates. They mentioned this on both live streams, and they're considering rebalancing especially the common drop tables and potentially changing the rate at which Raziel drops rares, or the method in which she does. But like, they didn't say any details. They're like, yeah, we're looking at it. They do seem like they're really planning to, when they get the time, TM, to rebalance the common drop tables for both bosses to be a little bit more like as expected and maybe a little more generous. They don't want people to feel like Hermod shouldn't be like bossing content that people grind, right? Like, it's there for the log and to get you plates, and then he is like, his common drop table is not supposed to keep you there. So that seems fine.
I wouldn't mind an increase in the plate. Yeah, I've only gotten one, and it's 1 in 10. I probably killed him 20
It's 1 in 10.
times. I only have
one. It took me 72 kills to get my first 4 plates. But I finished plate 29 at 292 kills. Like, I've seen, the worst I've seen is 370. The best I've seen is 230 to get 29 plates. Like, the fact that it's the 1 in 10 and so many of them do drop, it does balance out, it seems. So it's one of those cases where the RNG does kind of swing around. I'm not mad about it. It's a lot of kills, but it's definitely like, it's an excuse for you to like get used to using necromancy as a style and either play with your bar or get used to like when you need to spend adrenaline and how to use the burst and stuff. Like, I learned a lot in those 300 kills, so I like it as a like intro to bossing. He's definitely like a nice intro boss. The mechanics are straightforward. I'm a big fan. Just in general, the design. Simple, but I wouldn't want to live there, right? But like, it's good for what it does. It was a rough couple of days. But anyway, so they're looking at the draft tables. Next thing is that they mentioned that the crit buffs are currently glitched. I noticed this when I was playing. So I was like, I have biting perk on, but my game still says I only have the base 10% crit chance from necromancy. What gives? All crit buffs are applying, but because it's just of the way the necromancy crit like applies in the thing, that's just not showing on your character sheet. But the grimoire, the Reaver's Ring, the biting perk, anything that buffs your crit chance does apply. It is there even though it's not being shown on your stat sheet. So just as an FYI, they're working on fixing it, but it's just low priority. Next thing, Remy. Remy exists. Remy is the rat from Ratatouille, for anybody that remembers that lovely movie from the early 2000s.
Didn't make the connection.
Yes, his examen is he died falling into a pot of soup. It's whole 9 yards. For those who haven't found him yet, Remy, you can search him on the wiki. He is available through things just like a fun. It's a little ghost rat pet. It's like a rat-sized rat. It's tiny. So it's like super out of the way, transparent, like probably going to get some use by me in terms of like just if I don't want a large familiar blocking my way. You just put Remy as your pet override. And that's only available after you finish Alpha versus Omega. The unlock condition for him does require access to that post quest, and I won't spoil the things for that because he is a secret, but he exists. So that was a note on the live stream. Modluma snuck that one in there. They did mention on the thing that you can earn extra talent points past the 18. So if like you look at your Well of Souls, you can say like it'll be points earned. Mine is currently 19 out of 18. That is a bug. You are only supposed to be able to get 18 and then it's supposed to stop, but for whatever reason it's not doing that. So whatever. They're just letting it go because again, it's not causing any issues, so it's a low priority issue. But the next thing that is a much larger kind of going to lead into a much larger conversation they mentioned the consumable storage pouches are planned in future content, right? So they were talking about, like, people were asking for rune pouches and stuff. Don't worry, it's coming. Though, like, I think running theory right now is that maybe it'll be something to do with the Vorkath and the upcoming quest in October, since Vorkath does drop upgrades for, like, ammo slot stuff in Old School. Would be a nice kind of an homage. But with that said, it's definitely going to not be, I think, a traditional rune pouch or something like that. Skipping to the other live stream just briefly, I'm going to quote Mod Ryan. And he says, if there was ever a reason to have different ones, meaning like the container, because one of them, let's just say off the top of my head, boosts your blood abilities to have it equipped. If you were to swap to one that boosts your soul abilities, you wouldn't have to take runes out of it to put in the other one. Which is just to say that, like, it's going to be able to hold, like, your ectoplasm and your runes and things. And it seems to me like it's going to reach to some central depository, and you would just wear it. Like, it would be items that you would just wear that would give you access to those things that I'm assuming would go in the ammo slot. And we'll see whatever that item is going to be later. But his statement here is actually something I want to dive into a little bit, because it gets to something else they mentioned briefly on this, which is nothing is set in stone, but they've strongly hinted in both live streams there may be multiple future necromantic focus objects, which we can attune to something in place of the Well of Souls, right? So the Well of Souls gives us soul abilities like our Soul Sap and Barrage and those kind of things. And this particular set of summons, there may be another set of necromancy things using a Well of Blood, for example. And how would you think like Ancient Magics was the comparison they made, that you've got like that. And they also said that if they did, they would be more restrictive in future, right? This one, you are able to unlock all the talents, but you would actually have choices to make in a potential future well. What do you guys have?
They always say that, and if it was that easy to do, we would have seen it. I mean, I don't know. Anything that I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
Anything that you can grind and unlock, you're going with enough time. You're going to be able to grind and unlock.
Right, unless they just hard limit you for reasons, which I feel like would get thrown out in the design process because it's just a limitation on fun. But
right, yeah, you have to choose either A or B for this tier, or whatever. Yeah.
I'm excited by the prospect, though, of like being able to completely reflavor my necromancy combat. Like, that to me is something that it just seems very interesting.
I love that. Well, and that's why I said I think there's a lot more to come. You know, what could blood conjures be? I don't know, but it sounds cool.
Right?
You know, like I'm totally open to that stuff.
And given they've mentioned it a couple of times, it seems like something they've really looked into, at least to some degree. I don't know. I like it as an idea. I like the idea that you could switch into different modes. And of course, RuneScape being the way it is, it'll get min-maxed and all that. And like Ancient Magics, just like Ancient Curses, like it was originally released as higher tier content. It would just be a better replacement.
Yeah. I guess, you know, where I come down when it comes to choice, there are times when choice is great, but I don't think I'm alone in saying that when I'm playing a game, it's not only the fantasy, but it's the I want to have that power kind of experience. Like, I want to make believe I'm the biggest, baddest son of a bitch that's ever walked, right? And if
we're the hero.
Exactly. And if I spend the time, if I work to be able to be overpowered, I think I should be overpowered, because that's part of the fun for me. Like, just smashing something, to me, that wouldn't be fun for some people. It's really fun for me. Like, that's
true. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at when it comes to the kind of the choice thing. Like,
min-maxing feels good when min-maxing results in me smash.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I hear it. I think that personally, I think they've done well with this skill release, and I'm excited to see what, like, if they're choosing to expand on it and build out additional systems and like alternatives within it. I'm like, I have faith that they're going to do it well, and I'm excited to see where that goes. So this is really exciting to me. Like, clearly it's something that is probably in the early stages of development, and like literally nothing is even like created, let alone set in stone. But I like it as an idea. I'm excited to see where they go with that. And again, also storage pouches, good, cool. Earth, any thoughts before we move on? Because that's a big.
I do not.
Valid. The next thing they thought about is that the Conjure adrenaline costs may change. They're actually considering reducing the costs of all summons to 0% adrenaline, and then playing with the like adrenaline required to activate the summons. Okay. I like this. Like, I think the zombie summon would be really great if you could just have it for free, and then it costs adrenaline to like have the big AoE explosion. For me right now, at least where I'm at, it feels like Necromancy suffers somewhat from having too many big adrenaline spenders. Like, there's times when I've got all of my summons out, and like I'm, using Necrosis stacks on cooldown, and I have my specs up and my Death Skulls, and I'm able to like just send everything and do like massive burst, but then I don't have any control over the natural lull when I need to resummon everything, and that costs so much adrenaline, and I have other things coming off of cooldown that I want to use. Like, sometimes I'm just overflowing with stuff, and sometimes I'm not, largely because of the like cycle of when conjures are up. And that does, to me, kind of disturb the flow of combat. So I'm a big fan of like this as a change to reduce the summon cost to 0, because as it stands, I feel bad doing any summons at like in the middle of combat. I'm doing them almost exclusively out of combat to save the adrenaline cost.
And since you can do that, then this change only makes sense, right? Like,
right. It makes sense for longer fights. It reduces the cost for longer fights.
Yeah.
So I like it. I think, again, as they continue to add abilities, they're going to have abilities that have cost to them in some way, right? Be it adrenaline or necrosis stacks or what have you. And I think that currently the skill is kind of saturated. Like, adding in an extra adrenaline spender kind of hurts. It makes you make a choice, which is like absolutely a gameplay design thing that I think you could go for. Is like, you have to choose which of these powerful options you want to use right now. But it makes satisfying rotation building much harder. And it makes combat more complicated. And, sometimes there's a time and place for that. And, it's just a question of like how much you're going to dedicate to it. So anyways, there's that. I'm excited if that goes through. They dropped a couple of fun facts towards the end of the live stream. The disturbances, so we wondered like what these protection glyphs and other things were used for. Disturbances used to cause damage to glyph and candle durability. That was what they did. So they did have a punishment in place that did get pulled, not last minute, but it was at like some stage during the design process where they realized it was just a better skill if the disturbances didn't have a negative effect if you didn't do them. They didn't eat your ritual site. So
yeah. I think that's the right call.
I agree.
I would have been miserable. It would have made it's so difficult.
Well, currently they are AFKable if you want to, right? You'll get a lot. You won't get the XP, but you'll still get all the products and everything. And they just would become not AFKable without, right? Like, you'd have to, because the thing is, if you wanted to use a protection glyph, you're sacrificing a multiplier, or you're sacrificing, a speed or whatever it is that you're going to make less product. If your goal is to create and you just want to AFK, you don't care about the XP, right? Because the attraction's there for the XP is kind of the deal, right? At this point, if you don't care about the XP, you just want to create stuff. It would punish you for being AFK. And now and the way that it, works in game live, it doesn't. So I get why this was removed. But there we go. That's why protection glyphs are there. And they talk about what they're going to do with those a little bit in next live stream. The other fun fact is that Raciel's equipment, his hand wrap, quick note, it is singular. will be his hand wraps and his foot wraps will be the first dyeable hand and foot items. So you can spend 6 bill for a singular third age glove.
And once again prove that we should not just have a fee on the GE, but also a wealth tax where we just confiscate part of your...
You want
okay,
these gloves?
Comrade.
I'd wake Earth up.
Anyways, yeah. If you want to Barrows dye Raciel socks, congratulations, you'll be able to have dyed shoes now. Okay, so there we go. And again, just general note from the live stream that they ended with is that, like the general sense, everything is subject to change balance-wise. There's a lot of emphasis on the coming content. The skill is not in any way finished. This is just the release. It will not be everything. They're not necessarily batching it, right? They released what they consider to be a full and relative and functional skill, and I'd agree. Yeah. But they have a lot of additions that are still in the pipeline for it. So, exciting.
I agree. I totally agree that it feels like a fully functional skill. And even our darling of darlings, our archaeology was a skill that was added to later on, right? With our Anachronia sites and
all the mini dig sites. And they added a lot to archaeology.
I hate that stupid island.
Me too.
Earth's nemesis.
I hate it.
Candace has an excuse. You just are too lazy to learn the map.
If I click somewhere, I should be able to walk there. It shouldn't have to go all the way around.
But cliffs.
I have 99 agility. A cliff is nothing to me.
Valid. I am still angry about the Everlight, the gnome ball, like Quidditch thing at the Everlight. I'm like 300 gnome balls dry, and I'm just done. I don't care about those 10 achievement points anymore. I have 120 range. I wore that cape when I threw those balls. Didn't hit a single fucking one. Ass. Freaking. Anyways, it's great. Everything's great.
I'm not
salty. You're salty. I'm dead serious. Yeah, I'm really angry about it. It's the only achievement I don't have from archaeology, and I'm not going back for it at this point. I refuse. Anyways, 8:23.
Right?
Yesterday's live stream.
There's some nuggets. Yes.
There's a few big ones, and this didn't have as many big overarching things for me. Again, some of the stuff like the well options was obliquely mentioned again. But in terms of things they actually did talk about, things that are likely to be coming next week, or in following. Quick reminder: next week is a bank holiday. The update will be on Tuesday, not Monday. They're making changes to Death Skulls. It no longer goes nuclear, gaining damage and critting every time it hits if the first one crits, and it doesn't reapply. So before it was effectively the damage is supposed to be static. It hits one target for a number, it'll hit the second target for the number. What was actually happening was that every time it hit a target, if you had a percentile damage buff on, like the Salve Amulet would get reapplied on every bounce. So it just hit capped very quickly. It would just it bounced 3 times, and then if you've got the cape on, it bounces 6 times. The last 3 bounces would just one shot 3 random Slayer mobs with 12,000 or 13,000 health. It would just die. So it also targets a little smarter now. It'll bounce between things that are likely to extend bounces, those kind of things. So shout out to Mod Ryan for just increasing some of the back-end knowledge on that. They also made updates to titles that were gendered. So Lord of Chaos, Necrolord, and the Lich King titles now have Lady of Chaos, Necrolady, and the Lich Queen as options for folks that have unlocked those. Necrosis changes. They're investigating options for increased visibility of the Necrosis stacks. There's something about having a shifting position on a buff bar that maybe isn't optimal for a core combat mechanic, huh?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. That's really difficult for me, man.
I'm honestly surprised that I haven't seen an Alt 1 plugin or something for it, because it feels like something that somebody else would have gotten annoyed at and fixed. But I hope Jagex comes up with a solution for that. I don't know what it's going to be. The UI is already Like, it's so flexible, but it's also so crowded.
Yeah.
I would love it if they just said, yep, your edit mode, go into your extra option setting, and here's a little button that you can turn on and off that'll show it. You can just put it where you want it. But I think they're also playing with, like, should the ability change icons or something when you've got 6+ stacks, or, should it display somehow on the ability itself in some way? So they're looking at it. They're aware that it's not optimal, so expect that to be coming down the pipeline relatively soon. They mentioned changes to the platypus. If you don't know what that's being used for, it's currently one of 2 pets in the game that have blocking. NPCs cannot walk through a platypus. And they are being used to cheese AoE areas so that you're not getting attacked by 12 targets at once. You can stack things in specific tiles and effectively block things by having a platypus pet out. So they're probably going to be changing that. Otherwise, investigating changes to some Revolution issues. One of the things that they really said they wanted to try to avoid is that a lot of abilities work differently on Revolution than they do on not Revolution. I've talked about this in our micro lessons and in other times in the show pretty significantly. The biggest offender to this is many abilities will fire an auto attack after using them. Abilities that can be queued like Resonance or stuff that don't directly damage the target. And all channeled abilities incur a 1 game tick pause after they fire. It's part of the reason that the base version of Concentrated Blast is quite literally the worst damaging skill in the game. It is worse than auto attacks a lot of the time because it takes so long to fire because of that extra tick delay afterwards. Having it on a 5-second cooldown makes that tick delay fire really often and is a really big thing. Same thing with Fury for melee. Base Fury is a very bad ability. Base Fury has a higher base tooltip, so it's less punishing, but even so, it's not good.
So did they mean that? So they meant that in general, not just Revolution.
Yeah, they talked about Revolution in general being janky, and also there was some jank that had to be fixed with Necromancy in particular. But they're thinking about pulling some things off the global cooldown, or having some summons potentially incur a 2-tick global cooldown instead of 3. Things like that. Mixed opinions on all of that, but effectively they want to standardize Revolution to function as expected, which. Yes, approve. Interested to see kind of what that looks like when they implement it, but good things to note. Next thing they mentioned is they're looking into changing the offhand invention XP gain. So currently, main hands gain for every, I think it's 5.4% X of the 5.1% of your total combat XP is transitioned into item XP to level up your augmented gear. And then everything has a modifier on it. So 2-handed weapons get 150% of that XP towards their leveling up because they take both your hands. And currently, dual wield takes 100% to your main hand and 50% to your offhand. And what they're thinking about doing, at least for Necromancy, because you can't really one hand and shield it, you can't you don't have the flexibility. It's you have the same main hand and offhand. It's just they're not a 2-handed weapon. But they're planning the thought as of the live stream was to buff the offhand to gain the same XP as the main hand, so they would both receive 100% of your invention XP, which would be really nice for leveling with Necromancy actually, since it does have relatively good AoE if you set your bars up right. Speaking of that AoE, the next change they mentioned, Spectral Scythe. Next week likely to have the recast window increased. I can't tell you the number of times I've cast the first 2 times, then oh no, I'm 9% adrenaline shy of the next one. I need to use a basic attack on something, and then Soul Sap fires first, whatever it is. I don't get adrenaline. And then 2 abilities later, the Scythe wears off. And so what they're planning is that the recast window for it will be increased in time, and also the cooldown of it will start counting from when you do your first cast. So whenever you either the recast window expires or you've used all of your casts of the ability, the timer will, rather than being 15 seconds, will actually be, less than that by whatever degree. So general buff to AoE on the Necromancy skill by just saying, yep, the biggest AoE skill you have, gonna do more AoE. Excellent.
Yep.
Next big change, darkness. They're looking at some of the like back-end coding ways that it is convicted. So, currently they use the like standard like gaming or D&D or whatever it is system where, effectively targets roll to hit each other, and then if they hit, they roll for damage. And that, would then get applied if the attack roll is successful, and then the damage roll, whatever the number is. The way darkness is currently coded into the game is that it affects the attack roll. It says 20% of the time you're just guaranteed you don't hit. This is interacting poorly with a number of things. So there are a handful of bosses in the game that will never miss. They are coded to not do an accuracy roll. They just do a damage roll. Those bosses can never get blocked by darkness. Examples would be like Yakimaru is one of those. I think there's a handful of the like high tier bosses they've released in recent years just straight up can't miss. They just don't even calculate it in. So darkness useless on those. It'll affect maybe some of their minion damage, but otherwise in the fights it's not doing anything. So they're thinking about changing some of that. This also means that resonance can't fire. It also means that you cannot auto-retaliate. So if something attacks you and you dodge the attack, you will not auto-retaliate on them because you didn't take any damage. You didn't register that you got hit. Your resonance can't fire. If you're on something that can hit you and you have resonance up, you want to take a big hit and you dodge it, no heal. So they're considering changes to darkness and how to implement those farther down in that calculation order. Seems like something that is the engine team's job, so expect it possibly in a longer timeline as that goes through QA. Now the big, well, you know what? Let's do some other of the like small stuff first. Let's get out of the way. Actually, we mentioned protection glyphs earlier. Those are changed. The everything very up in the air right now. Madluma did mention they're potentially thinking about using those to extend the length of random events. I don't know if that means like a Soulstorm will give you a 4th tick, so you just get extra XP, or if that's like the Wandering Ghost will just wander for even longer. He'll do like a double pass or something. And it just gives you a wider window to react to them. I thought about you when I heard this, Dennis. I'm going to be honest with you. The like potential for random events to be active for longer so that you could actually pick them up.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, once again, another change that would be helpful.
Right.
All of the changes are helpful, but my grill in the room is yet to be talked about.
Right. I mean, color and visibility, right? Like that's a lot of it.
It's mostly visual clutter. The players
all the players and everything.
Much clutter for me to pick up the.
They've removed a lot of the clutter, but as it is with everybody diving all over the ritual site, there's constant movement. Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
Have you tried hopping to a legacy world for it?
No.
I can't remember if we mentioned this to you.
I don't.
Because there's like, I'm actually curious right now. There's currently a world that has 18 players on it.
Huh. With all 18 of them probably at the ritual site.
Probably. It's the legacy only player killing world. So it's like, yeah. But like, the legacy world's 24, 29, 33 players. The next lowest is 111. Random Lithuanian world. So, I mean, maybe helpful. But yeah, everybody's particle effects. It's fair.
Yeah, I don't need the 2.7 that people are polling right now, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that right now. So, the big drop from this live stream was from Madluma saying that effectively, it's a combat skill, and currently rituals are maybe a little overtuned. As far as I'm aware right now, about the best combat XP you can get per hour if you're AFKing with the correct rotation in the correct places and the sweatiest setups, about 1.5, 1.6, maybe up to like 1.8 mil an hour. Rituals, as Dennis is saying, they get above 2 relatively quickly with high soul attraction. And so they are planning, not this coming update, so not the one that's coming on Tuesday. As she said, it will not be this week, but in some future week, so I'm imagining, 9 days or 16 days from the time of recording, they will be nerfing the XP that you get from ritual disturbances by some amount. The current design is 50%, so you'll get half as much XP from them. Now, to me, this is kind of like, it makes some sense, right? Like, I know Tanya's issue with this too, is that like it's a combat skill. You want to train it with combat. You shouldn't have the best XP rates come from non-combat. But at the same time, the way that people are getting those high XP rates through combat, to me, is AFK, right? Like, they are, like, they're vaguely AFKing, but they're they're just grinding, versus the rituals where you actually have to pay some attention, so you actually get a reward for your attention to some degree, because every 12 seconds you're dealing with the random events, versus like when I do combat, because I'm not a person who's going to enjoy like going out and grinding abyssal beasts. When I've been training combat with the skill, I'm just going to go out and do Slayer, and your average Slayer task is like 600k an hour, maybe on a good day. I think you could optimize your tasks better, but like, I don't want to. I like killing some things. And like, again, so maybe some of that's on me, but just in general, you get a lot more, how do we put it, benefit, let's say, from just doing rituals, given there's, again, you have to pay attention, and there's also a pretty hefty cost in terms of ink. I've probably used, I've made all of my own ink. I haven't actually spent any money, but if I'd sold all that ink on the GE, I probably would have made several hundred mil. So, is there something that like XP should follow the money in some way? I don't know. I'm very conflicted on this as an update.
So, number one, let me just say that I was very wrong when I thought that the combat XP nerf was not going to be a big deal. It definitely was a big deal, and
ED3 no longer crazy.
Well, and it's not just ED3, but just in general. Like it's
right.
The rates that I get now are not too far off of half. It's not good.
Yeah, but they dropped combat XP significantly, and you also have to remember that means they dropped invention XP significantly as well, because that's percentile wise, given you could train it with fish fenching or whatever, but still.
Right. So with that going on, then to also have the skilling component of a combat skill bring in the best XP, to me doesn't make very much sense. Now, on top of that, like these random events, okay, so the rewards active gameplay, fine, if you can do it, but I've never seen one. And on top of that, the way that things, I'm being literal. Like the way that we usually the three-legged stool that we always talk about is GP versus XP versus AFK. And even though the rituals are AFK, to me, that is also the production end of the skill. That's where you're making the thing that you need for the skill. So to me, that I equate that to smithing. You know what I mean? If I'm smithing plate bodies, I'm not getting much in XP, but I'm turning around, I'm selling those for 2 mil a pop, right? I funded everything I've ever needed from smithing that way. So I see rituals like that. So I wouldn't care if they got rid of that altogether. Would be fine.
It may be a situation where time will tell, right? I mean, the challenge right now is that rituals are, no matter how you candy code it, I'm making all of my own stuff. It costs me nothing. No, it costs you time.
Yeah.
Time you could have saved by buying your ink, or money you could have made by selling the ink that you've made. Rituals right now are a money sink. Effectively, they're a time sink is what it actually comes down to at the end of the day, but they are like a sink for ashes, and they are a sink for like all of the things that go into ink are lost in rituals. And the things that rituals create, you don't make a ton of ectoplasm, right? Like I was hinting at earlier.
Yeah.
The price of ectoplasm got corrected on release week. It is going up. we are having everybody doing all these rituals for XP right now, and the price of ectoplasm is still going up. I don't know if there's people who are just stockpiling boatloads of it, and that's why it's rising. It might be, but also you use it pretty quickly. Like you're using even if you're using 1 or 2 conjurers, it's 1 to 2 a minute. Like you compare that to like an overload. I've probably used in my RuneScape, in the last 5-6 years, close to 10,000 overload flasks, not doses, flasks. Mm-hmm. And like each of those 36 minutes, the equivalent that's like 50 to 100 each of the like ectoplasms. It's like in that time I would have gone through like 500 million ectoplasm.
Yeah, I did.
No, 500,000. 500,000. Let's hold on. Brain did bad math.
I was waiting on you to pick up on that.
Yeah, no. Hold the phone. But like at current prices, that is 3 bill worth of ectoplasm. Like it is, and it's rising. It's still going up.
Yeah.
Like I think they're going to need, like you say, like currently it's a loss of money to do rituals, right? Like it's not like they don't put out enough ectoplasm or necroplasm or rune essence. Rune essence is too cheap because people are doing them for XP right now, and like maybe the cost will go up. But currently, like the way you gain money, the way that you produce things with the scale is by killing stuff and getting drops. So like oddly, the money side of the stool is on combat, the XP side of the stool is on rituals, and the AFK side of the stool is also on combat.
Well, see, and I look at it, and I'm seeing the AFK with the rituals, but I'm looking at that as either providing for myself or I could make money.
Right.
Those inks are...
The inks are the production part. You're right. That's true.
Right. I mean, I guess you could do the necroplasm, but the inks are where
you might want to sell the ink. Yeah, at that point.
Yeah. But I mean, there's been good money. The only reason I haven't is because I've actually been enjoying doing the skill. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm too busy like actually doing it to just.
Meanwhile, here's me on. I've done 18 Slayer tasks and a couple of Reaper assignments and about 1,000 boss kills with necromancy. And I've done no other combat. I'm approaching 106 right now. I have done only rituals. And a lot of that is like, I'm going to make myself ink, and then I'm going to do all the communions to hit the next skill point. I'm going to pre-install all these things. I'm just like, I'm taking care of all of this nonsense, and there's been like 2 level bands in the like 55 to 60 and like 80 to 90 where I've actually done combat, and everything else has been like, I've got rituals to do, or I've got plates to farm, or
doesn't that feel? I mean, to me, it feels funny. Like it's.
I mean, if you're buying your ink, if ink costs a lot less, I would not be doing this, right? Like, so much of this has been making my own ink. To be fair, like I've based on the number of ashes I've gone through, I've made and used about 8,000 ink to get here. So like between all the tiers, so. Like it's not, it's a lot of time making ink. It's a lot of time making necroplasm. So like this is, Iron Men to some degree have to do this. And again, like it's not like I've done a lot of bossing, I suppose. There's definitely still some glitches in bossing with it. Careful with reflecting jellyfish in the Akamaru fight. They'll one-shot you if you execute one of the jellies near them. But anyways, like, again, I'm like torn on this. I could make an argument either way. 50% seems a little severe to me, but also it's real good if you're paying real good attention.
I mean,
TBD.
Yeah, I guess I can't pretend that I can separate myself completely from the fact that I can't really participate in the activities. That being said, it does, to me, I'm a skiller at heart, but it feels funny. It just it just feels funny to level a combat skill.
I'm with you.
Really?
It's not what I expected. They said it last week on the show too, right? That Stormy was saying it, that like he came into this expecting, he was prepared for like a 2-week combat grinder. He was just going to kill stuff for 2 straight weeks. He was going to find the most opinion thing and get crashed and deal with it. And he got rituals for 200 million experience. There's a lot to be said for combat skills should force you to train combat. And then again, like imagine you've now got a second well to fill at the same time. So you're like earning talent points for that well with some combat, but you're also having to like do communions for a second well. So like, yeah, it's another reason why I don't think they're going to go, higher than like 50k. If they add another tier to any of these, I think that's really out of the question. But anyways, that's what that is. Last few notes from the live stream and keep us moving. They are adding transmutation for mementos. So currently you're like fragile and broken mementos that are pretty much completely useless and valueless. Save them. You will be able to transmute them, I'm imagining with divination energy, into higher tier mementos that will potentially sell or disassemble for something. I think they get pious components if you disassemble them. So like there's some value there. They're also adding notification when you attempt to start a ritual with a depleted alteration glyph. So I cannot tell you the number of times that because my multiply glyphs have 9 durability and everything else has 12 or 18. So you on ritual number 10 of a round of rituals, I cannot tell you the number of times I have started a ritual without my alteration glyphs in place and had no attraction and no, it just did bad things. So I'm pleased about that. They're still considering rebalance on conjure cost, reducing that conjure cost to potentially 0, fingers crossed. There's also currently a bug with conjure duration, right? So if you've used the like life transfer ability, you'll notice that you have to wait for conjures to be active for a while. Or it won't work. Similarly, the Racial robes extend the duration of your conjures by, I believe, 5% per piece worn, something like that, 5 or 7%. And currently, because of the cap, they're just not doing that for some of the conjures. That cap was just put in a little bit too low. Something got missed in a design doc somewhere, so that will also be getting fixed. And then the Threads of Fate changes. The thing we mentioned earlier is our last note. They will be increasing the duration of Threads of Fate, which, again, currently it is exactly 3 global cooldowns, which means you cast it. Your first global cooldown is done because you cast it. And then you've got 2 global cooldowns, but if you're using something that has a longer animation or travel time, like Finger of Death, the second proc of it won't hit within that window. So they will be extending the window by some margin we don't yet know, to make Threads of Fate actually be able to hit with more than one ability, which you can burst multiple targets now. Good job.
Yes.
They also said they're adding some other stuff to it. I don't know what that is. Maybe smart targeting, but
whatever it is, it's welcomed, and I'm glad, because I use that a lot and I didn't realize that how little it was actually doing for me, because I thought when I was under that it was hitting everything, and it's not the way it works at all. So
no, I mean, if you've got bursts saved up, like some of the best stuff you can do with it right now is just use one. So you build the 12 necrosis stacks, you use 1 Finger of Death to knock half those down to 6, and then you hit Threads of Fate, and in the next 2 GCDs, you do have time to hit a singular Finger of Death, and then the Death Guard special attack at 0 necrotic stacks. That's, to my knowledge, the best current rotation with it. And that will apply 25,000 damage to 5 enemies, typically. It's hefty.
But it's all in that's such an intricate kind of sequence that you're doing there.
Yeah.
And maybe
Finger of Death, Threads of Fate, Finger of Death, ulti. Or not ulti, spec. That's just the general burst rotation for the skill too, by the way, is build the 12 stacks of necrosis, and then when you need burst, Finger of Death spec. That does the big damages.
Okay.
And then you throw a Death Skulls at the start of that if you really, really need burst.
All right.
Because in theory, that whole selection, those 3 abilities only cost 22% Dren. But yeah, So excited to see that change, see what the actual wording is on it. Hopefully we should get another post tomorrow on Friday when this should be out by the time this is released that goes through a lot of these changes, and those should be out on Tuesday.
Awesome.
And that's that.
That was packed. A couple.
Lots of coming updates to talk through.
Yeah,
just a couple.
for sure. Well, with that, I think it's time to acknowledge some achievements this week before we go into what we've been doing. So, Earth, you want to get started off?
Yeah. So, unless otherwise noted, all of these are 99 necromancy. We have a Danny, Lady Claw, WM Penguin, Codeforge, Ozzy. Oop, help me here. Oza, yep, that one. Pernasius and Alex43, all 99 necromancy, and then Woody showing everyone up with 120, and then XOX Scotty XOX got 120 strength.
Nice.
All right. Well, moving on to the 21st, we have Jesse Pinkman, also of 99 Necromancy, and Luke Todial. Wait.
Yep.
Luke Todial. Okay. 99 Necromancy. We have Robosaur Rex with 99 Necromancy. We have Lotsy with 99 farming. Oh,
Shane is proud by proxy.
There's a farmer in the middle of all the death and undead. Santa Inn, so like that, 99 necromancy. We have Simbakaru with 120 invention, probably from necromancy, but 120 invention, nice. And what's this one? Daxi with 99 necromancy. All right, everybody. All right. Then we have Kennard with 99 necromancy and Arendelle 120 with 99 necromancy.
All right, moving on to our last round of achievement starting on the 19th. We had Omega with 120 necromancy, Sangre Sani with 99 necromancy, Psyoasis with 200 million constitution XP, Z with 99 necromancy, Samurai Jack with 120 fletching, Jazakon with 99 necromancy, Diapolo 10 with 99 necromancy, Isarap with 99 necromancy, Up the Irons 05 with 99 necromancy, and Zerdones with 99 necromancy. Shout out to everybody. Good job this week. Look at all of those new death slingers.
Yeah, looky there. Lots of nice skull capes everyone has out. Yeah. Nice achievements, everyone. All right. Well, with that, I think we have a pick of the week. What do we have here?
We do. So I had something that came across my Steam desktop earlier this week called Spirit of the North. It's on discount until the end of this month, end of August, for $4. It is 80% off. It's very basically, it is pretty game with Fox. That is kind of the whole 9 yards for anybody in the video version of the show. I've got a couple of literal just random screenshots from the game stuck in here. It is just somebody made beautiful environments in Unreal Engine and put orchestral music over the top of them. There is no dialogue. There is no HUD. There is not even really a menu. There's like some options. You play as a fox that, in basically Iceland, like in terms of the like background, it's a lot of like different regions of Iceland kind of is the look. And it's a puzzle game, but effectively you're just trying to figure out how to get to where you need to go, and you're, dropping spirit energy off in type of things. It's just, it leads you through it with very good environmental game, like environmental teaching, environmental storytelling. and just very simple. Fox in Pretty World, go burr. I will say that it does have somewhat more realistic physics than I'm used to in video games, so the controls feel a little bit clunky. Like, Fox actually has a bit of a turning radius and a bit of acceleration attached to him. He can't jump out of water like a Mario game. Like stuff like that. That it's just there's just a little bit of jank sometimes that makes the controls and the like platforming getting around the world feel a little bit funky. But otherwise, it is just calm orchestral music, like chill platforming Fox, like low key puzzle game, and it's real pretty. And it's $4 on Steam. Otherwise, I don't know if it's worth $20. It's all right. But it's just gorgeous. So big ups. And again, the name for it is Spirit of the North. Link to the Steam page and the trailer in the show notes.
Man, $4. I mean, hey, it doesn't have to be.
No, and it's like 4 gigabytes. It's not huge either, given how pretty all the environments are in it. It's nice. They're good.
All right. Well, nice pick of the week there. I guess we'll move on to what have we been doing. Want to start us off, Earth?
So school started back last week.
Yes, it did.
So,
so that
and sleep.
Okay.
Sleep good.
And dealing with a bunch of children coming back, and even worse, the adults.
Bum bum. Do not alarm the makers of the tiny humans. They will eat you alive.
It's a different world now. It is a different world. Well, my sympathies, Earth, and hopefully that'll settle down once everyone gets kind of in the groove.
Yeah, first couple of weeks are always a little rough, but once the dust settles and everyone realizes that it's actually gonna be okay if they can't print something for 10 minutes. They realize the world will go on. We're good. It takes a minute. And I'm there for them. But it's a lot of emotional support as well as tech support. My job is 50% tech support, 50% emotional support.
That is
Yep.
That sounds like my job.
I walked in on at least 2 people crying this week, so
started off strong.
Yep.
Gosh. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck. Taxi, what have you been up to?
It's finals week for me. I had my last one this morning, so that's done. I've been low-key, vaguely AFKing rituals sometimes. Definitely not hardcore committed to the grind yet. But that's been a lot of my week, is just chilling, doing rituals, doing some odds and ends. Got my Master Quest cape back. Got the pet. Got just
nice.
Taking care of just odds and ends. Doing necromancy things. Thinking about I'm getting close to hitting 29,000 rune score. They dropped me out of the top 1,000 in rune score during my absence over, to be honest, the last year. So I'm slowly climbing the ranks. So I'm in the top 1,200. So there's a couple hundred spots left to reclaim. I think I'm going to go for about 30k rune score. That should put me in the 800s, give or take. So.
Nice.
Working on that in my free time.
Nice. Well, congrats on the pet.
Thank you. 3 left again.
All right.
One day.
Well, as for myself, I'm really enjoying necromancy. I'm really, I feel like what they set out to do, they have done when it comes to me. I don't know how it's worked with everyone else, but being a novice at best when it comes to combat, this was a way for me to start to interact with it a little more, do things, and because of the way that the equipment upgrading goes, I can't just hide in my dungeon all the time. I've actually had to do some and get out and do things, and I've done things that I haven't done in years. Encouraging
you to try out PVM. It's working.
And
I like it.
Yeah, it actually is. Now, granted, right now I'm still working off of a Revel bar, but I've
Hey,
also added a
does the job.
second bar where the second bar I am actively using the abilities, right? Because it's kind of
Woohoo.
how it works. So we're baby steps, but the things that I was hoping that it would
Yes.
help me do, which was basically, survivability, it is 100% doing. So I'm not putting out the
Yay.
DPS that people are raving about right now, but I am staying alive long enough to kind of see mechanics and which is
We can
something
fix
I
we can
couldn't
fix
do
the damage
before.
for you, Tennis. If you're staying
So,
alive, that's the big
right.
one.
So yeah, I mean, that being said, I've done, done God Wars 2. I've never been good with Greg, but I have not had too much of a problem using the
Yay.
necromancy. Um, so I think this is going to be the style that I can do some things with, right? Like I'm never going to be super badass, but I can at least do probably most of the bosses in the game with this, which to me is exciting, and I think kind of what they set out to do.
Yay!
So,
I'm excited.
know.
We will talk through damage stuff. I'm working on that micro lesson. I will. We'll talk, Dennis. I'll bounce some things off you because
Awesome.
we can. Yeah. I'll send you something later. Fun fact: did you know that Greg is my highest kill count boss?
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Why?
No,
I've earned a lot of money. I wanted his title.
Why?
Oh wow.
He was
so
good money.
annoying.
So like, and he was easy for me to do with range.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
I keep my sounds off. I'm not that crazy, but like that last one was nuts. Anyways.
Well, yeah. So that's Oh, and I did a couple quests. I thought I was
Yay.
getting ready to do the last. I think there might be 2 left. There's Alpha Omega and
Tomes of the Necromancer.
I did that one. Oh,
It's
I did Warlock.
It's the Necro Lord. The Remains of the Necro
There you
Lord.
go. Yep.
Yes.
So
also good quest.
I had those 2. I was all excited and looking forward to doing Raziel until you just crushed my dreams earlier.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. If we have to bury your rotation, you will do it. You'll be fine.
But I am looking forward to that. So, but that's been it for me this week. We want to thank everybody for joining us, and we think Shane will be back next week, but it's new technology, so we'll have to see how everything goes.
He's been under for about twice as long as the doctor said he was supposed to be. So
we're hoping that this will help.
We're hoping he'll pull through, but maybe we'll get a Christmas miracle or something, and could finally be free.
Well, with that, we will be back next week. We'll see you guys all then, and everyone have a great week, and we'll see you later. Thanks.
Ciao.
Goodbye forever. He's never letting us do this again.